Hello, and welcome to Quarrelsome Rhinoceros Stitches, episode number 35. My name is Monica. I'm the host. You can find me on the internet as Quarrelsome Rhino on Instagram and as morux, M-O-R-U-X, on Ravelry. This is a knitting and crocheting and general making podcast. Normally I come to you from Bangor, Maine, where I live, but this time, I have a special guest with me.
Hello!
This is Kerry. You can find her on Instagram as kchan323 and the same name on Ravelry. Kerry is one of my best friends, and she loves knitting just about as much as I do.
I'm just not as fast at it.
That's true.
Nobody's as fast as you.
I do knit really fast. It's been a very long time. I looked, it is about 4 months since my last episode. The last episode I came to you from the house that I was living in, and I have since moved and done an entire semester of school and got married. So
show it off for the camera.
Oh yeah. I mentioned last time, and I think that I'm not sure if I showed the actual shawl itself, or the tie, or any of my progress on wedding knitting, but since all of that is over now, I can actually properly show it. So that is where we're going to start. We're going to start off with our finished objects, as always. So, first, I will show you the shawl. This pattern, there we go, would you mind holding that, Bart? So, this shawl is called Storm. It is by Joji Locatelli. It is a really great one-skein shawl. It is knit in a really, really loose gauge with a pretty big needle. And I knit it with, it's Jagger Spun Midnight Heather. And then the needle size is a US 7. So it's a 4.5 millimeter needle with fingering weight yarn. And it has these really pretty drop stitch sections and eyelet sections, and it's all short rows.
It's kind of asymmetrical, which is really cool.
Yeah, so you cast on here, and then this edge is a little shorter than this one over here. So this is where you start casting on, and then this is way longer on this side.
Planned asymmetry is one of my favorite design elements.
Yeah, for sure. It is really, and it's really interesting to knit. That's the other thing. I wanted something small, and delicate, but also that was interesting to knit. So, and it's all garter stitch, there's no purling, which is also my favorite. So that is the wedding shawl. I also don't have any pictures yet from the wedding, so I can't actually share those, but once I do, I will share them. So there's the shawl. I also knit the Rye tie by Saranac Hale Spencer it's a free pattern, I believe, on Ravelry. And this is the tie. It's I find ties very boring, so it is, excuse me if I call it boring. But it is, so there is the front, the largest, widest part of the tie. It has a little bit of a decorative edge, kind of. The pattern actually tells you to fold it over and sew it to the back so it doesn't show, but I actually kind of like how it looked.
Yeah, it helps highlight the fact that it's handmade, as well as this really nice center spine down the middle here. So at least there are some elements of not only visual, but creative interest as well. You're not just doing a rectangle of stockinette.
Yes, which is actually kind of what I was doing. This full story of the tie is that I tried to design one, and I hated it. So I just looked for a pattern. I'm pretty sure that Hannah of the Corner of Craft knit this tie she just got married recently as well. And I watched her podcast where she showed that tie, and I had to knit one because it was really nice. Also, the back part of the tie is just a knit one, purl one rib. So it's really simple once you get to that. There's no shaping, there's no anything. It's literally just knit one, purl one forever. And by that time I needed some meditative knitting, so there is that. Excuse me. So that is knit in the same yarn as the shawl. And as well, basically the night before the wedding I needed something to do with my hands. because I was stressed, obviously, because I was getting married. So I finished making some little crochet flowers for everyone in the wedding party, and this is one of the hair clips. So I crocheted, oop, there, you can kind of see it better if I tilt it that way.
Yeah. It was great watching this happen because she picked up the yarn and the needle, I turned my back for 5 minutes, and then there was a flower.
I don't know if I've mentioned on the podcast before. I probably have because I've shown off things that I've crocheted, but I have one speed. It is either fast or I'm not doing it at all. So I try to slow myself down so I don't hurt my hands quite as much. But if I stop paying attention to going slow, I'm at lightning speed again, so. But yeah, so I got this pattern. I'm pretty sure it was just a free pattern that I Google searched. I literally put in crochet free pattern flower or something like that, and I found it. So it's a really, really simple flower. And I also made centerpieces, like my centerpieces for the wedding had these little flowers on them as well. So there's that.
They're very cute.
Yes.
And easy to put in your hair.
Yeah, so I hot glued barrettes onto the back of them, and they were already had the little burlap piece and the little white thing on them already. I got those. I'm pretty sure I found them at AC Moore when they were going out of business in my town. So I got that, but as a corsage, or not a corsage. What are they called? The boutonnieres.
Boutonnieres, yeah.
Pre-made boutonnieres, and they had these ugly white flowers on them. I'm like, that's not happening. But they were $1. So, so I bought them, and then I pulled the white flower off of it because I hated it, and then crocheted the flower to put on. So everybody kind of matched. So that was nice. But yeah, so that is all of the wedding knitting that I did, on top of school and everything else. So I'm actually really surprised that I managed to get it done. But then again, I didn't actually knit anything else last semester. I knit this in May. I knit a hat, I think, for Maz over the summer. Mm-hmm. And then I think I didn't knit anything until wedding knitting, which is really surprising for me because I normally knit all the time. So.
Well, I feel like there was a lot of pressure, too. You felt like you couldn't knit anything but the wedding stuff.
Yeah, because it needed to be done. And then I felt guilty for knitting other things. And But that's over. I don't have to deal with that anymore.
I have all these, obviously, I have all these creative friends. I am creative myself, but I feel like I couldn't make a whole lot of stuff for my own wedding because it would just be so stressful. Yeah. And I work very slow, so I doubt it would be done in time.
So one of my favorite things on Instagram is the slow fashion hashtag. So I see a lot of my creative and knitting friends who are in podcasts and stuff. I'll see them post their makes, and most of them are sewing or knitting, and so it's slow fashion for them because it takes them a long time. Yeah. And a lot of love goes into them, obviously. So, but I really, really like that about knitting, even though I do it very quickly. But yeah, so that was all of the wedding knitting. So Kerry has a finished object as well, and it is her very first complete finished object.
Yes.
And I'm so excited because I wrote the pattern.
Yes. It was gifted to me. This is the Ametendlic shawl, except I call mine Ametendlic XL because it's giant.
It is huge. We probably won't be able to fit the whole thing in the frame, actually.
It's close to it.
Close to it. So, yeah, so there's that.
Oh yeah, there we go. So actually center it in the frame. Perfect.
Yep. So the regular Ametendlic is probably about to, I guess it's probably about to here, this big. So she just added a whole bunch extra.
Because the fun thing about the Ametendlic pattern is it's modular. You can add to it. So I added the extra slip stitch sections along the eyelets. And then all down here, I did another section of stockinette, another section of slip stitch, and then you can kind of see where I got done with doing purling. And I could have gone further with more stockinette, but I chose to just go ahead and go into the slip stitch section and finish it off. And I had the sage. The main color is tricotery Aran Bluefaced Leicester in Sage Riot, and I bought this yarn because I fell in love with it, and I happened to have just the right amount to do this massive blanket shawl with. But I needed a contrast color, and so what I like to do with things is I don't like to go too matchy-matchy. So I found these little orange specks in the variegated, and I pulled up the closest match I could in Bluefaced Leicester to get this, and that is the West Yorkshire Spinners in BFL Aran in burnt orange. And this was my first experience working with BFL, because obviously it's my first ever finished project. And I really love the drape, and how soft it is. The fibers are just a wonderful, absolute fluffy delight to work with.
Do you want to know my favorite thing about BFL? It does not pill as much as Merino does, in my experience. Usually it does have a higher twist, which means it will pill way less. So it's one of my very favorite bases to work with because of that. It's also way sturdier than Merino is.
Oh, also, we knit this on a smaller needle than normal.
Oh, yeah, that's right! Yeah, so I wrote the pattern for an 8mm needle, which is a US 11. US 11, I think. Forgot to write that part down. But
yeah, it was an 11, because I bought an 11 for it and then realized this is way too big.
Yeah. So you knit this on the 5, right? The US 5?
On a US 8.
Oh, yeah.
5mm.
5mm. Oh, my God. It's vacation. I'm on vacation mode. So you get a lot denser of a fabric if you do it that way, rather than the really big needle that I use. You get kind of a looser gauge.
I wanted something squishy and huggable. So the nice thing about being friends with the designer is you can get advice like that on the spot.
Yeah.
And it pretty much blocked itself, which I was very happy about.
Yeah, so when it's heavy enough like that, it will stretch itself out, so you don't actually have to do it, which...
I didn't have to pin this. I laid it on the floor and tugged it until the edges were straight.
Yeah, basically, yep. And then it just shrinks a teeny tiny bit, and then it's done.
And I love it.
Yeah. It's great. I love it.
And then here is what it looks like on top of my other shawl, because whatever.
There we go. Yeah, so it's a lot bigger than the original Ametendlic. The original Ametendlic is written as a very small triangle around the neck, usually. So, like, normally what I do with it is, and I wouldn't be able to do it with that one because it's way too big. Like, let me see. I want to try it because it would be really funny. Because it basically just looks like a giant bib if I do it with this one. Although... it would be really nice under a really big wool coat.
Yeah, like in the dead of winter you could do it when everything else you're wearing is massive. But here in Florida, this is to wrap around my shoulders when I am cold, because you wouldn't think that Floridians get cold a lot, but our air conditioning is stupidly aggressive. So someone like me, who's naturally on the cooler side anyway, tends to get pretty cold during the summer months, oddly enough.
Yeah.
And my desk happens to be right underneath the vent.
It is. Like, your desk is actually the coldest part of this room. Also, I don't think I mentioned, so I am in Florida, I'm visiting Kerry. We call this house the robot house, which I am sure you can understand why. So that is what is behind us. It is robots, because we love collecting toys. Everyone does, obviously. Other people collect, like, other knitters who are watching this podcast, you collect yarn. This house collects yarn and also robots.
Yes.
But yeah, so that is the Ametendlic. And I loved that pattern, and I want to knit another one. I actually did a craft fair in November, like the middle of November. And I think I sold both of my versions of Ametendlic, so I don't think I have one anymore.
Oh no! But,
well,
congrats on selling them.
Well, yeah, I'm glad I sold them, but also I have to knit myself a new one.
Also, the funny thing is that Ametendlic, the word actually means short or measured, and this took me months because I made it huge.
Yeah, and the original pattern, I'm pretty sure that the original pattern took me like a week, maybe.
Yeah.
But also I knitted on huge needles at like a gigantic gauge and just went for it. And also I knit really fast, so. Speaking of knitting really fast, I knit a shawl in a month. I told you that I hadn't finished anything since, like, forever, except that I finished the Pure Joy, which I cast on after the wedding. So this is, I got the yarn as a present for Kerry. And I've actually mentioned Kerry a couple of times on the podcast, so now you get to meet her. So I got the yarn as a birthday present for Kerry, and I told her, I was like, either you can have the yarn, this red yarn. It's a Malabrigo sock weight. I don't actually know what the name of the colorway is, but it is this the gorgeous red color. And I told her, I was like, I can give you the yarn, or I can knit you a shawl out of it. And so she chose this shawl. So we went through and found a pattern that would work for the yarn. We went and found a color that would work with the yarn from her local yarn store, and then I planned on making it after wedding knitting. Yeah. So this is the Pure Joy. It is by Joji Locatelli, and it is a long crescent. You can see it is also planned asymmetry. And yeah, so I knit it to pattern until the end. It was knit on a US 6, which is a 4mm needle. The one yarn is Malabrigo, the red. The gray is the Fiber Company Canopy, which is a baby alpaca, merino, and bamboo yarn. It is, I've said it on my last podcast, but it is still the softest yarn I've ever touched, ever. So, although it may be rivaled by the one that I picked up the other day, because that is very soft also.
I wonder, is it by the same company?
Yeah. Well, no, it's actually not. But it is also alpaca, so. But yeah, so I really, really like the Pure Joy. So it is done, so you start it right here, and you do short rows to make these wedges. It is a paid pattern, so I'm not going to talk too much about the specifics of the actual pattern itself. Like stitch counts, that's not happening. So you basically make these eyelets, and then you make wedges, and it turns out that side is way shorter than this side over here. You do a lot more increasing over here. But the only modification that I made to the pattern was the end. So I had a bunch of red and gray yarn left, so I made one more row of eyelets and a little bit of garter stitch so that it didn't fold in on itself. And I also did an Icelandic bind off, rather than, I think in the pattern it's a Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off, or it's just a stretchy, she just says stretchy bind off of your choice or whatever. And I like the Icelandic when it's garter stitch because it just kind of blends in with the actual pattern.
With the stitch itself.
There we go.
It just kind of vanishes.
Yeah, so you don't even like notice that there's a bind off there. And it's fairly stretchy. I did end up going up a needle size to do it though, because I found the first few cast off parts where it was a little bit too tight for my liking, and then this bit I did with a bigger needle and it's a little bit more stretchy, so. Yeah, so those are all of our finished objects, and it's a lot, actually. I guess it's not a lot for, like, 5 months for me of progress, but, you know, whatever. And now that I'm done knitting the Pure Joy, Kerry has convinced me to knit another shawl, but I'm going to have her show you her version first. So we're going to move on to works in progress.
So one of our traditions that we have just started is that when we visit each other, we go to each other's yarn stores. Mm-hmm. And are we mentioning them by name?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we went up north for Monica's wedding, we went to Heavenly Yarns.
Yeah, I can't remember if they have just rebranded themselves as Heavenly Yarns or if it's Heavenly Sock Yarns. It's in Belfast, Maine.
And I laid eyes on one skein of yarn in particular that's probably making noise on the microphone. She showed me the wall of Maine yarns. So I was like, okay, well, I'll look there first because we're in Maine and these are the Maine yarns. And I saw these Quince & Co. Osprey Aran weights, and Aran is probably my favorite weight of yarn to work in. I love how fluffy and huggable it is. I love how fast it knits up, especially since I like knitting big shawls and other big things in particular.
Can you imagine trying to knit that Ametendlic in fingering weight yarn?
No. That's not happening at all.
Yeah.
If someone else wants to grade it for fingering weight yarn and knit it themselves, they are more than welcome to do so. Well, they're more than welcome to ask you to do so. But I fell in love with, this one is Sabine, and it's this delightful dark gray color with, you can't really see it very well on camera, but it's got very faint bluish undertones to it. It's definitely a gray. It is 100% charcoal gray, but it's a very cool gray. And you wouldn't think that a gray color would make somebody jump for joy, but I fell in love with
especially
this
somebody
color.
who wears so many colorful things. That's
well,
like...
I think that's why, because I'm so colorful, I like to look for neutrals in my shawls and sweaters and stuff like that so I can wear them with whatever crazy color I happen to be wearing that day. So I had been wanting to make a neutral shawl anyway, because as much as I love my Ametendlic, I can't wear it with everything that I have. I mean, I could, but...
But also orange with, like... Well, I guess blue isn't so bad, but... There are colors that orange doesn't go
especially with. Green and orange together with certain things.
Yep.
So I fell in love with this gray color. So on the spot, I just pulled out my phone and went on Ravelry. I was like ignoring everything else in the store.
I must find something.
I must find something. And I found this pattern called the Hedge Witch. And it is a winged triangle shawl by Wolf and Fawn Knits. It's run by this lovely person by the name of Nat Redwolf, who is an absolute delight on Instagram. And she created this pattern, and it has the most, and there goes my yarn ball.
There goes the blorp.
Yeah, it's a blorp of yarn now. The most delightful texture. It reminds me of Raven Feathers when I knit it on this particular colorway. But all of the texture work is done on the purl side, and it's a very easy, it's a repeat of things.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a repeat, so it's an 8-row repeat that it is a similar, like, you do the same things on each row, it's just where you do them varies, basically. And it is there's like a slip stitch element to it, and it's pretty easy to memorize, honestly.
Yeah.
I know I've already said it on the podcast many times, because I memorize patterns really easily, but this one actually is really easy to memorize.
It's easy to memorize, it's easy to do, it's very meditative, and it creates just this delightful texture.
Yeah.
And it is actually written for a size 8 needle. Yeah. So it creates this very dense plush fabric, and I've seen a lot of commenters on Ravelry talk about how they had to size up a needle because it was too thick for them. And it does feel very tight when you're knitting it up here. But then as you get more fabric, the weight of the yarn starts to pull on it more, and you get this just absolutely delightful, huggable drape.
Yeah. And I think once it's blocked, too, those stitches, the textured part of the stitches will loosen up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it'll drape a lot better once it's blocked.
And it is a meditative delight to knit. I am not a fast knitter. I have done all of this since the middle of December.
Yeah, since, like, you cast on what, like, right after you got home?
Yeah.
So, like, the 11th or the 12th
yeah,
of
the 11th
December?
of 12th or December. Today is the 8th of January, and I've already gotten this far.
Yeah.
Which is very fast for me. And so, because I wanted a neutral color, I ended up with another Quince & Co. yarn. And this one is Kumlien's Gull. It's a pale gray heather type color. It's very nice. Even getting my lot numbers in there. And I'm really looking forward to having them together, because that's going to be...
that's a really high contrast, but it's still neutral, and I like that.
Yeah, you got to give it a little bit of pop still.
Yeah. So, because I am susceptible to peer pressure, I got a gift card for Christmas from this yarn store. So I went and bought myself the yarn to make one of my own. And so I picked up the same yarn. So it's the Quince & Co. If you haven't seen their label, that's what it looks like there. Let me see if it'll come closer and focus. There we go. It's the Osprey. And this one is Caspian. So you can see you may not be able to tell the very much difference on camera, but you can next to the gray. So this is more gray, and this is more like an oatmeal sort of brown. So I picked this, and I picked a teal one that I don't actually have a skein of because I wasn't sure if I was actually going to be able to cast this on while I was here. So I just brought one of the skeins. But I actually did manage to cast it on yesterday, while this was blocking. So I've got 2 of the repeats done. So I've got a little shawlette. A little baby shawl.
Looks like a waffle in that color.
Yes, it does look like a waffle. This is my waffle shawl now. Whoop, that's falling. There we go. But yeah, so that is really, really fun in it. It really, really is. I'm enjoying it immensely. And I really like the texture that it makes.
It's really interesting in that it is both peaceful and meditative, so you don't really have to think about it. You can still watch TV, watch your anime, and read subtitles while knitting this, which is a feat for me. I can't always do that, but I can with this. But it's still interesting. Even if all you're doing is knitting this pattern and actively focusing on it, it's not boring or dull.
Right.
I cannot thank the designer enough for putting the texture work on the purl side, because I hate purl rows. I love how stockinette looks, but I hate purl rows. Mm-hmm. And putting the texture on the wrong side...
Yeah, it makes it something interesting to do on the wrong side of the knitting, and then you're like...
And then on the right side, just... Yeah, going.
You're just knitting. Like, it's really, really cool. So, like, you can actually, like, just tune out for the right sides and do the increases in the right place, and then you just knit the rest of the way. It's great.
It's wonderful. And doing it in this yarn is such a delight to work with.
Mm-hmm. It's so squishy.
It is squishy, it is lofty, it has a wonderful drape. It just says American wool. It does not say what type of wool it is.
Yeah, so it's probably just a wool blend. I would say that means it's probably just a couple of different kinds of wool blended together.
Same as my shirt.
Yes.
Yeah, I like charcoal gray, as you
as you might be able to tell. Just like I love mauve, because that's mauve and gray. But yeah, so we are both working on hedge witches. Kerry has a bet that I will finish first, though, because
probably
that's how that works.
That's my handicap for our knot race. Several repeats.
Yeah, so you get a several repeat head start, and then I catch up to you. Although I probably won't catch up to you until, like, next week.
Probably.
Because I do have to work next week.
The question is whether you'll finish the commission before I finish this.
That is true. Yeah, a friend of ours...
That's the actual race.
A friend of ours really wants me to knit them one of these shawls as well, and... I haven't picked up the yarn yet, but I have to confirm the colors, because he gave me the colors, and then he saw Kerry's version, and then he went, oh. So now I have to confirm what colors to get, and then I can knit him one. But also, I wanted to work out the kinks of the pattern before I actually knit one for a person that I'm like, yeah. Anyway. So, that is the wonderful hedge witch. I will probably knit that more than once, which is actually... impressive, because I don't think I've knit the same shawl twice, other than the Ametendlic, ever.
I feel like your own patterns don't count, though, because you're also...
Yeah, most of the time when I write patterns, I write down the pattern, I knit it, and then I have it tech edited, and then I knit it again, just to make sure that I've I've actually written something that someone else can understand. So, but yeah. Anyway, and then eventually I get it test knitted sometimes. Sometimes I don't. Mostly just if I can find someone who will test knit it, I will get it test knit. But anyway, so yeah, those are the hedge witches. And what is next on the list? Ah, yes, the Find Your Fade. So I've never knit a Find Your Fade. I don't have the yarns, and I don't have the desire to knit something that is that repetitive in that large a size.
Oh shoot, I am in the middle of a row.
Oh, that's okay.
I will do the best I can to show this. So, I love this pattern. The doing the nothing but garter stitch for a while, it can get a little frustrating sometimes.
See, that's where I have the hard time.
Especially in fingering weight. I'm not patient enough for fingering weight. But it's good for if you have to pay attention to other things. The lace sections are really interesting, and I love them. I love the lace sections. It's a well-written pattern. I want one of these shawls, but it is probably not going to be this one.
Yeah. So, Kerry mentioned to me about a week ago or so that she was going to frog her Find Your Fade.
I was thinking
that you were thinking about doing it.
Because the fade, this is too color blocky.
Yeah. Like you want them to fade into each other a little bit more.
Yeah.
And you thought they would. And, like, by all rights, in the skeins, they look like they should fade into each other more.
And then when they knit up, it becomes very color blocky, and I'm not sure, like, I don't think that this is the look that I'm going for this shawl or these yarns.
Right.
And so I think that, I mean, I'm glad I got the pattern. I'm glad I started knitting it. Mm-hmm. I want to knit one in different colors.
Yeah.
But I think that this pattern and these yarns would be better served in separate projects.
Yeah. Well, and, like, so I love Andrea Mowry's patterns. I've knit a couple of her patterns before. They're on previous episodes if you want to go back and find them. I've knit the Weekender, and I've knit, this is a pattern by her, the Goldfinch, and I'm planning on knitting this pattern again, which, again, that's a very big compliment to a designer, because I generally don't knit patterns more than once, because I get bored. And that's a fault of my own, not of the patterns themselves. I tend to really, really not want to knit something again, but I really love how this shawl works up and how it fits. I pretty much wear this thing every day, and I have pretty much since the first leaf fell in Maine. I was like, it's fall, time to put on the shawl. Excuse me. But yeah, so I find that frogging it, if you are not happy with it before you finish it, is going to serve you better. That's my opinion. So you spend a lot of time knitting, and if you don't like how it looks while you're knitting it, you are not going to like how it looks when it's done.
And that means you're not going to wear it.
Exactly. And the first case I can think of for that for me was the shawl that I did a test knit for the first Woods book, the first Making Stories book, called Woods. That's what I meant. And I test knit one of those patterns, and I hated how it looked on me. I hated the size. I hated the construction of the sweater. And
it was a great looking pattern.
Yeah, it was a wonderful written pattern, and it was wonderfully, the pattern is great. I hated how it looked on me. Like, it made me have wings right here. I don't need any help in that area. Like, I've got wings of my own here. I don't need extra ones. But the moment I knew I was going to rip it all out was I was sitting on my couch and I leaned back and a big poof of shoulder just right out, and I'm like, I'm done with this. Like, I can't handle this anymore. So I pulled all of the yarn out, and I relaxed it by soaking it and hung it up to dry, and then I re-knit a sweater, but I knit the Weekender instead by Andrea Mowry. And I still knit that too big, and I ended up having to fix that, but I'm way happier with it as it is now than as it was as a cardigan that was oversized in Fisherman's Rib. So anyway, it's a great pattern, definitely not for me. I think it would be great on a much smaller person. That's that's my recommendation, basically. But yeah, so I think it is way better to frog it if you don't like it than to keep going with it and then finish it and go, I don't really like this.
Yeah, and it's just, if the colors had faded into each other more, that would be different, but I noticed once I got into the second color shift, it's like, oh, this kind of looks like a superhero uniform, which, while cool, is not the look that I was going for.
Right.
So I think that next time around I will pick yarns that actually fade into each other properly.
Yeah.
And for these yarns, I'll pick something that either just uses those yarns, or is designed to be a little more color blocky.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a good way to go about it as well. Did you want to talk about the yarns that are in it right now?
So these are more tricotery yarns because I love the yarns that Malin puts out. She's an indie dyer on Ravelry. You can find her in her Ravelry group called Tricotery. And she does the most beautiful hand-dyed yarns in various colors. These ones from her Painted Black collection. This one is Maleficent, which, as you can see, it is very dark with only a sheen of purple. That is not just the camera, that is actually the color of the yarn. And then this is Black Dragon, which is a little more iridescent, designed to look like basically an oil slick sheen on a dragon's scale. I love it. I love how they blend with each other.
Yep.
And
I like that there's a little bit of green in it.
Yes. A little
like
bit of
it's green, purple, pink. There's a little tiny bit of orange. Like the slightest hint of orange.
Mm-hmm. And she mixes colors really well. Like she did the Sage Riot with the green with the little pop of orange.
Yep.
I was surprised at how well I found a match for that.
Yeah.
And I feel like her work is better represented in a shawl that can actually highlight those colors in a way that I'm happy with, as well as Andrea Mallory's work is better represented than in a shawl that I hate how the colors blended.
yes, exactly. But yeah, so that my encouragement is to frog it.
Yeah.
That is my encouragement, and it always will be. Like, I don't care how much work you've put into a shawl or any garment or an accessory. If you're on the cast-off row and you still hate it, I'm still going to tell you to frog it because you spend a long time on it, and if you don't like it, there's no point in spending all of that time on it.
Yeah. Better to have something that brings joy.
Exactly, because there's not enough of that in the world right now, and I would like to just continue to bring it and not take away from it. But yeah, so that, I believe, is all of our works in progress right now. I definitely have more, and they're all at home, and I'm actually about to frog another thing as well. And I've showed it on the podcast before, my green cabled sweater. The modifications that I did to the pattern made it too big. So, that will also be hitting the frog table at some point. I need to find something else to knit with that yarn. So, yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed in it because I really like the pattern and it's not written for my size, and I'm still very frustrated at patterns that are not graded for my size because my size is not actually that large. Like most patterns are written for like 48-inch busts is like the upper end. They're like extra large, and like that is. I think I need a 50-inch for a sweater that's going to go over shirts or, like, over things. Like, if it's just going to go over a tank top, I can have a 48, but...
Yeah, like, a 48 would work for me over clothes.
Yep.
It would be a little loose, but it would still work.
Right. But the 50-inch is the, like, minimum that it would need to be. And so there are some patterns now that are written for 55 or 58-inch busts, but I would like to see more size inclusivity going into the 60, the 65, the 70-inch bust range. That's just me. But I know that there are some things on Instagram right now, some people who are advocating for that, and I really, really appreciate it. Yes. But yeah, so I'm frustrated with that sweater. So I will pull it out. I'm still hurt by it. So I have to wait until it's time. I just have to, I hate it. It just makes me angry that I had to adjust it and then I adjusted it incorrectly and now I have to redo it. Or, well, I'm not even going to redo that pattern because I think it hurts too much. So, so I think I'm just going to find a different one.
And that shows the value of having a good tech editor work on your patterns who can do the grading for you because they know the math.
Yeah, even if you... Yeah, I think that finding a good tech editor that's able to do the grading and also maybe trying to do the grading yourself. Like, trying to learn how to grade for bigger sizes, especially if you're planning on knitting, on writing garment patterns is really important. Which is actually one of the reasons why I haven't knit a garment, or haven't designed a garment pattern, because I don't know how to grade for those larger sizes. I don't know how to grade for smaller sizes either, to be fair. I don't really know how to grade a pattern. Obviously, because I tried doing it and I failed, so maybe I just need to measure my gauge better. Anyway, that's another rant, and now we can move back on to knitting. So we are moving on to soon-to-be works in progress, which is now a new segment, I've decided. Because I didn't actually... I think I did do this segment in the last podcast episode, but I didn't actually name it that. But now it is soon to be works in progress. So while everyone was here for the wedding... There. No, yeah, not here. We're in Florida. Oh no, I dropped it. While everyone was in Maine for the wedding, we all decided to go to the yarn store. So in the same trip to the yarn store where Kerry got her Hedge Witch stuff, my mom picked out a skein of yarn. It is Malabrigo sock in the color Mask. It is this like black overdyed rainbow, basically. It's great. I love it. She wants a hat. And I thought it was a worsted weight skein, and I was like, perfect, just get that. That's awesome. Fantastic. It's sock weight. I hate sock weight hats. I knit her a sock weight hat before. I knit the sock head, and it took forever, and it's very boring. It's a great pattern for sock weight hats. I love it. It's free, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember the name of the designer. It's like the go-to sock weight hat pattern. And it's good. But it's boring. Because it's like 4 or 8 inches of 2x2 rib, and then it's like 4 or 8 inches of stockinette in the round. And it's boring. So, I did a search. I knew I was going to do this one next. So, well, next after the Hedge Witch, but whatever. So I did a search on Ravelry, and I found a pattern by Andrea Mowry called the Harlow hat. It's $6, and it's a 2-color brioche hat. I'm going to just do the 1 color, and not mess with 2 colors. And yeah, so I'm hoping that the brioche is going to keep me interested long enough to actually produce a hat. I'll at least get it started. That's until I get bored with brioche, which never happens, so. I don't actually think I've done brioche that's supposed to be 2 colors in 1 color, but I'll figure it out. Yeah, I really like this yarn, though. I do like the overdyed black. I think it's cool.
That's what the tricoter yarns are in the fade. They're overdyed.
Yeah. I think that's really cool.
It's a really neat technique.
I love the other colors that are in it, too, because this has, like, blues and oranges and reds, and then a little bit of purple and pink, and then just overdyed black, and it's great. But I don't like black yarn. I don't like knitting just straight black, but I'll knit something overdyed black. So, that's coming at some point when I feel like casting on a figuring weight hat. And that's my only future one. I have many others that I want to plan, but I don't have anything specific for any of the other skeins that I have yet.
Yep.
So.
And I have quite a big whip coming.
Yes.
Because I am very slow, but I like big projects for whatever. It's because I like blankets, I think. I like stuff that I can wrap up in.
Yeah. You like to be cozy while you are on Couch Coon watching things.
In Florida, in the aircon.
Yes, in the aircon. That's the important part.
So, I have many skeins of tricotery DK Merino wool in Doctor Who blue. It is actually called Who blue. It is a TARDIS blue. It's a tonal. It's not 100% solid, but it's this really pretty. It practically glows. in the light. Like, you can kind of...
It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous. I have over 2,000 yards of it.
That's quite a lot.
Because I forget why I bought that much. I think I wanted to make some, like... I think I wanted to do, like, a cabled scarf that was as long as the Fourth Doctor scarf.
Oh, yeah.
But cable it, like, in the TARDIS style, whatever. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So now I have all of this DK weight, of all things, blue yarn that I have to figure out what to do with it all. And it's hard to find good DK weight
especially
patterns.
for that much yardage. I think, like, so there are, like, shawls for DK weight, and there are, like, sweaters for DK weight, but they're never going to use that much yardage.
And I found, while I was looking at Wolf and Fawn Knits, their store on Ravelry, I found the Henwife shawl. And it's this beautiful, huge 3/4... Actually, I think the first time I saw it was she posted about it on Instagram. She was posting about hers. But I saw it also while I was looking at her store. Mm-hmm. Beautiful 3/4 shawl that has lace on the back and then some lace and some garter on the front panels.
Right.
And it's huge and it looks perfect for wrapping up in, especially while I'm sitting on my computer, because the back is a little bit more open. I'm leaning against my chair, but the front's all cozy. So that is going to be knit up into this.
So that pattern, is the Henwife shawl. It's $8 on Ravelry. It does say that it calls for about 1,500 yards of DK weight yarn. So you will maybe have extra a little bit, but not like for a sweater, you may use like 800 or 900 yards, and then you'd have like an entire sweater's worth left over. But this one, it'll take up most of your yarn. So.
Yeah. So that'll be good. And then I also... So the first time we went to my local yarn store while we were here, which is Creativity in Largo, Florida. They are wonderful people. We found together, rather, this yarn. It has a sticker on the front of it. The fiber seed.
Yeah, the fiber seed. And this yarn is, I believe it's spun in Maine and dyed in Florida.
Yes, which is perfect for us.
Exactly.
So we call it our friendship yarn. And we picked out together, I think I picked out this one and then you picked out the white.
Yeah.
These beautiful skeins of yarn to go together into a shawl. And let's see, this one is... We've got Natural here, which is just a plain, undyed, off-white. It's beautiful. Very warm tone, which I like.
Yeah.
And then this one, which is called Thunder, which is a much cooler, lots of grays and blues and very dark purples that kind of fade into each other.
Yeah.
And so I've been looking for a long time for a pattern that would use both of these and also not be super small.
Yeah.
And I found, finally, one that I think I'm going to use, which is the Drifter by Tammy Gore. Uses about 800 yards of fingering weight, 2 skeins. So here's my 2 skeins right here. You can do it in 1 color or 2. Usually the projects I've seen on Ravelry, they do 2 colors.
Yeah, I've seen mostly 2 colors. Because there is an element of sort of color blocking with them.
Yes, and it's like they
and
do
I will
this...
put a picture on the screen if I can find one.
There's...
And I think the pattern is $6.50, so it's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Pretty standard shawl pattern price.
So I'm looking forward to that. I love how the colors look together. I think they're going to go great.
Yes, yeah. But the only problem is that they're fingering weight.
Yep.
Which is why you haven't started that one yet. Probably.
It's that and... Sometimes, you just get hit by lightning with a certain project.
And you can't do anything else but work on that project.
And that has been me with the Hedge Witch. Yeah. I cannot put this down. I will be sitting at work. And I type for work. I just type all day. And so knitting at work is not a thing that I can do, but it is all I want to do. It is, I'm going to finish my work faster so I can pick up my Hedge Witch again.
Right, exactly. And that's and that was me with the Goldfinch. It was, I am not putting this down until I'm done. And I think I knit it in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. DK weight shawls make me very happy. That size, for whatever reason, DK weight just makes me happy. But
I find you get a lot more textural detail with the bigger yarns.
Yeah.
Just because you can see the fibers easier.
Yes, definitely, yeah. I find a lot of, like, cabling patterns look way better in worsted or Aran weight than they do in fingering weight. Mm-hmm. It's just a nature of it, I guess. And, like, I've been drawn a lot, like, away from sock weight yarn lately, or fingering weight yarn lately. And I think a lot of it is that I'm not knitting socks anymore, as you might have guessed, because I haven't shared a sock on... I think I shared one pair of socks on the podcast last time. But I've definitely been way more about shawl knitting and way more about hat knitting than I have been about socks. I think most of it is because I can never get up the desire to knit a second sock.
I mean, you could just make that your thing. Just have a bunch of mismatched socks.
I could. I mean, I used to wear mismatched socks as a teenager all the time.
I do now when I wear socks. I'll even, like, I'll make sure that they're the same type of sock.
Right.
But they'll be different colors of
yeah.
the same type of sock.
Yep. Oh, man. Alright. I think, as far as actual knitting content, that is it. But I bought things because, as Kerry said, we have a new tradition of going to the yarn store. Which is great as a tradition and bad for my wallet. So.
Well, I mean, I did buy 6 skeins from Heavenly Yarns.
That is true, yeah. Yeah, I actually bought those 6, and then I bought 4 other ones for a scarf. That's the word I was looking for. A scarf for my husband. And it's not going to happen anytime soon.
Well, hopefully it's not solid.
No, luckily it's worsted weight. But yeah, so I bought some things, and 2 of these companies you'll recognize because I've shared them on the podcast before. So this one is Twin Mommy Creations, and I knit a shawl, out of her yarn before. This one is called Caution, Hazards Ahead. It is a merino nylon blend, and it is like highlighter green, but you can't really tell on camera. This yarn will never show up the right color on camera. It is the hazards of neon dyeing. But yeah, so it's like a neon green and black. It's got some speckling. It also has a little bit of like yellow.
A little bit, yeah.
A little tiny bit of like yellowy. Yeah, that's coming up on camera. Good. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to knitting something out of this. I think maybe just a 1 skein shawl, probably. But I'm not really sure yet. The other shawl that I knit with her yarn is the wingspan that I knit with a bunch of different stitch patterns in it. It was like a purpley, orangey mixture. I liked that one. So I picked this one up because she's local to this area. I also have another skein of LRA. This is their Lace Merino DK. But I couldn't pass this one up because it is just purple and yellow and gray and black, and how can I say no? I really, well, I guess not really gray. It's more like a blue-ish. Like a very
dark blue.
Yeah. But I really, really like it. This one is DK weight, so I will probably try and pop this into a shawl at some point, if I can find other colors to go with it. But I couldn't say no to it. And then every time we go to the yarn store here, I pick up a little from the fiber seed, a little seedling.
Yes, they call it seedlings.
And this one is in the color Watermelon, so it's just a little mini skein. I will pop this into my blanket, my Grady Straight blanket. Probably not right away, but I will put it in my blanket at some point. But my blanket is a really good project to work on in the winter, because it's big enough now, like, because I think it's probably about that tall. It's big enough now that I can set it on my lap, and then it's actually a blanket, but I'm also working on it, so that is a good one to work on in the winter. The only problem is that I actually kind of have to look at it when I'm crocheting, so it's harder for me to watch things with subtitles, it's harder for me to watch television that I haven't seen before while I'm knitting on it, so I just have to pop, like, Star Trek, the original series on the TV and just go for it at some point. And then the last one, last one.
For now.
For now, yeah. So this one is Creativity's own brand of yarn. This is from a mill Pioneer Fiber Mill yarns. So it is a 4-animal blend. It has alpaca in it. It is this really gorgeous, like, sky blue color. And I think it is a light sport or a heavy fingering weight yarn. So I'm probably just going to make this into a hat for myself. I may make it into like a lacy sort of hat to wear in the spring when I still want it to be, well, spring. Maine springs are basically wet, muddy, cold, disgusting winter. Second winter is really what it is. Or maybe third winter, depending on if we've had a thaw by then. But, so I'm going to make it into like a little lacy hat. I haven't really found a pattern yet for it though, so. But yeah, so there's that. That is all of it. That is everything. We did it. But yeah, so I think that is all of the content that we have to share with you. As far as I know, I don't think I brought anything else to share. The rest of it is all at home. In the giant yarn stash that hasn't been organized since I moved.
Well, that can be... So you could always do just an informal episode of organizing your yarn stash.
That is true, I could.
Or have a stream.
Yeah, I will actually do that. That actually sounds like a way better way to spend my afternoon than just organizing my yarn. I will stream organizing my yarn. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks, Kerry, for coming on my show.
Thank you for having me.
And I will be back at you with more yarny goodness at some point in the future. Bye!